All right, guys, in this episode of Live Life in Maine, we're going to talk about what it actually takes to move to another state. So, I've been asked to make this video, and regardless if you're going to make a move to Maine, where I am, in the state I'm in, or if you're going to move to another state, this episode is probably going to be for you because we're going to talk about what it really takes. I can imagine, I've heard this from a lot of clients that we've helped move here. That I've worked with directly and specifically, it's kind of nerve-wracking. And I got to imagine it must be. You're looking at making one of the largest purchases you've ever made, or another purchase that's large that you've made in the past. Buying a house, it's one of the largest purchases you're going to make in your lifetime. And doing that in a state that you may not be familiar with, doing that in a state that may be far away from where you're at today, I can imagine is a little unsettling. And I've heard that a lot from clients before they teamed up with us. So this episode is going to be for all you folks that are looking to move to another state. Maybe you're being relocated. Maybe you just want to get away from where you're at and you're looking to get a fresh start. This episode is going to be for all you folks that are looking to do that. Now, obviously, if you're looking to do that and you're looking to move to Maine, which was the 8th most moved to state in 2023, and we are number one, or have been, we were number one in 2023 as the most inbound versus outbound traffic for a state, tied with Florida, then I would encourage you to really watch this channel because I'm going to take you through the process of how we do it up here. And obviously, if there's other realtors out there listening and you have not adopted this process, well, then maybe you will as you help some of your out-of-state clients on maybe moving to your state. So guys, if you're thinking about making a move, and you're moving into another state, hopefully it's Maine, then I would encourage you to sit back, relax, because this option in this video is going to be for you. All right, we're going to get after it right now. All right, guys, welcome to this channel here, Live Life in Maine. My name is Scott Thibeau. I'm a realtor. I'm an investor. I'm a broker. I'm a consultant. Let's see, I own a bunch of properties. Not a bunch, I own a few, a couple of businesses. Real estate is all I do. I'm a father of 5. I'm a veteran, and I'm a Mainer, or a true Mainer. What's that? Somebody who was born and raised here. So I'm pretty proficient when it comes to the state of Maine, and I'm pretty proficient with helping people move to this great state. Believe it or not, and I think more people are believing it now, it's not a secret anymore. Maine, as I said, it's not a secret anymore. Maine was the 8th most moved to state in 2023. And when you talk about inbound traffic versus outbound traffic, like a lot of statistics are, if you're moving to a state and let's say there's 10,000 people that move to this state a week, but there's 10,001 leaving that state, well, then, you have more outbound than inbound, kind of like California. But here in Maine, we were tied for first with Florida for the most inbound compared to outbound traffic. I think at like 63 or 67%. In other words, out of every 100 people that came or left, 67 came in, 33 or 35, whatever that number is, moved out, almost 2-to-1 ratio. And again, Maine's not a secret anymore. There's kind of a couple of reasons why a lot of people are starting to recognize Maine as a place to move to. Number one, it's quality of life. Number two, it's just beautiful up here. We got 4 seasons. But probably the most important reason, at least that I'm hearing, if they didn't get relocated for their job, they just decided to move here, was Maine is always typically rated in one of the top 2 or 3 places of safest states to live in. Actually, all the New England states are some of the most safest states to live in. But Vermont, Maine, and New Hampshire are like the top 3 all the time. And, they share. I think New Hampshire was number 1 last year, or maybe number 1 this year. Maine was number 1 probably the year before, Vermont. But we're always in the top 3. So I hear that a lot from clients that I've helped move here if they weren't getting relocated. And that is, we want to live in Maine. We want to raise a family here. Obviously, the quality of life, the slower pace, not that we're that slow, but the slower pace, the less people, less traffic, less kind of hustle and bustle. It's a pretty awesome place to live. And obviously I've lived here almost my entire life other than the 8 years I spent in the military, and then a couple of years after the military, I lived in the South before I found my way back to Maine in the late 90s. So guys, this episode we're talking about how do you make a move to another state, right? Now, it doesn't matter if it's Maine or another state. It's really about if you're moving to a state that's not close to where you currently live, right? You're being relocated, or you're just picking up and you're going to, you've thought about moving to a state that's far away from where you live now. Specifically, if you have a family, I got to believe it's a little nerve-wracking, right? It's a little unsettling. How do you do that? How do you buy a house or buy property in another state that you really haven't been to, or you haven't been to that much? You don't really know that much there. You don't know really where to live. You have to kind of partner with somebody, a realtor maybe, or somebody else that's going to help you through that process. And how do you do that? Because, the purchase you're going to make is going to be one of the largest purchases you make in your lifetime, right? Buying a house is not for the faint at heart. It's a large purchase. You're tying up a lot of capital, and you're tying up a lot of credit when you're thinking about buying a house, specifically if it's in a state that you're not familiar with or you're moving to and you've really never been there. So, guys, that's what this episode's about, right? I've helped personally a lot of people move here from other states. Just 2 weeks ago, I just helped a couple and we closed 2 weeks ago. For a couple from Utah. We've helped people from PA, from Minnesota, from Michigan, Ohio, Florida, Texas, California, New York. I think Ohio twice, actually. New York, did I already say New York? Anyways, it's been like 12 or 14 people over the last couple of years. Families move here from other states, and this channel is really exacerbating that issue. Now that I'm being found more, that is speeding up faster and faster and faster. So I have families right now from Colorado, from Arizona, and from Tennessee that have all reached out to me, and I'm in the process of helping them make that move too. So, guys, if that's what the purpose of this channel is really to help you get educated, and that's why I created this channel, was really to educate you and help you stay informed on what it's like to live here in Maine and what it takes. So let's get into the process of what we go through here, what I go through here personally with anybody who's thinking about making a move to Maine and reach out to me. First of all, why do they reach out to me? Well, generally it's because they've been watching my YouTube videos, they've grown and liked me, they like what I give. I'm not one of these salesy real estate people that's in it for the money. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm in it to make money, but it's just not how I roll. I only work with like 20 to 30 clients in a year, maybe. It provides me a good amount of living, but I like to personally work with them personally. I like to be involved in all facets of the deal, right? I don't like to hand stuff off unless I absolutely have to, because call me a control freak, but I love to be involved in the process from the beginning to end. That way I can, especially if you're from another state or away, I can be informed and keep you informed on when things happen. So one of the reasons why a lot of people have started working with me and my team here at Live Life in Maine is because we kind of do that personal touch, right? I don't farm off paperwork. I don't farm off closings. I don't farm off inspections. I don't farm off walkthroughs. I kind of do it all and make sure that I'm well informed, and therefore you're well informed as we go through the process, right? So generally people reach out to me via an email first. They give me a little bit of information on what they're trying to do, why they want to move here, or what they're looking to do, ask my opinions. I haven't even talked to them yet. They know more about me than I know them or you, because, you've been watching me on this YouTube channel. And, I had somebody that reached out to me about a week ago and said they've watched all my videos sometimes 2 and 3 times, and they're just like, you are the one you want to work with. I'm the one they want to work with. So it's very flattering. But that was the purpose of this channel, right? To just help you get as educated as much as possible. So when the time comes, you have a pretty good understanding of how I operate. And we've grown a kind of a relationship through the camera. So you have an understanding of who you're talking to and working with when that time comes. So typically somebody reaches out to me via an email, and then I set up a Zoom call with you. At your convenience, I send you a Zoom link, and we're going to spend an hour, maybe an hour and a half, depending on how deep a conversation we get on kind of what your goals are, what you're trying to do, your current situation, your time frame, and of course your budget, right? So if you're gonna buy a house and you're not a cash buyer, you're gonna have to get pre-approved, right? You're gonna have to get pre-qualified. I kind of like it if you can get already pre-approved through underwriting, but a lot of lenders don't do that. There are some lenders that kind of go through that whole process right up front. They've already underwritten your pre-approval, and there's no surprises unless you make some surprises, like you go buy a car, a house, or you lose a job or whatever. But either or, you got to get pre-approved. Now, when we're talking about the pre-approval process, there's kind of two schools of thought, right? There's the local pre-approval, right? You're working with a local lender, and I have quite a few local lenders that I refer out to. I have no skin in the game. I don't make any money from that process, but I have some local lenders that I've had a lot of success with that I can refer you to. Or you may already be working with a lender, and as long as that lender is licensed to lend in Maine, that's fine too. The only thing I'm going to say about the kind of the bigger national brands, the national lenders, depends on who they are. Like Rocket Mortgage and those guys, oh God, it's very painful. It's kind of like I deal with a lot of military people, so like USAA or Navy Federal Credit Union. I like Navy Federal Credit Union best out of the two of them. But they're not going to give you, they'll probably shoot me if they saw this video, but I just have never experienced the same type of personal touch with those kind of national lenders as I do the personal lenders. And of course, I have relationships with the personal lender, the local lenders. So of course, I'm going to have more of a touch. I can make things happen faster with those guys for you than I can in national lenders. But I get it. Some of the national lenders have some pretty good programs. Navy Federal, I just upped my last client that moved here from Utah, and we closed a couple of weeks ago. He was a Navy Federal, and Navy Federal Credit Union, a little shout out to them. They have a pretty good program if you're a veteran and you want to consider, if you're not already with Navy Federal Credit Union. What I like about their program is they offer for, I think it's $250 every 6 months or 9 months. I can't remember the total time frame. That for $250, if the rate goes down, for $250, you can buy that rate, right? You don't have to go through the whole refi process, which can be expensive, 2 to 3% of the price of the house to refi, right? For $250, you can, as rates, hopefully they will eventually come down, you can get into those new rates. It's a pretty good program, I think. But just beware, if you're working with a national lender, make sure they're licensed in the state of Maine. Of course, I will have to get in touch with your lending officer or your lending agent, whoever they are. And make sure we're working together hand in hand. It's usually by email. Very, very often it's phone calls too, but they're harder to get in touch with, but it still works. I'm just saying, not trying to digress into something different, but working with a local lender is much easier than working with a national lender. I understand if you already are pre-approved with a national lender, just make sure they are licensed to lend in the state that you're moving to if it's not Maine. So that's the first step. We'll try to go through that pre-approval process. That's part of the Zoom call, right? If you're not already pre-approved, I'm going to send you some lenders to call and to work with. I kind of have them rated on a scale of 1 to 10. It's 3 or 4 of them, and who you should start out with. Obviously, I have my preferences just because of the experience I've had with them that you may not have because you haven't worked with them before. But we go through that process first. And then underwriting, make sure that whatever they're going to lend, they can lend in the state you're in if you're not dealing with a local lender. So the first process is obviously you got to get pre-approved, and that doesn't matter if you're moving to Maine, another state, or across the street, right? If you're gonna borrow money, you got to get pre-approved because no seller is going to accept a purchase and sale agreement, an offer from you, if it's based upon financing without a pre-approval letter. You kind of should know that right up front if you don't already. So again, we have a Zoom call. You already kind of know about me. You've been watching me on these videos. I've been kind of building a relationship with you, even though I don't know it because I've never met you, but you know me. That's how you reached out to me. So it's really just to get to know you better. kind of ask you why you're moving to Maine, what's your goals, what's your time frame, what's your budget, what are your hopes, what are you trying to get out of this, other than obviously buying a house, what you're looking for. And then once we get through that process, we talk about, what it's going to take, right? The process. I take you through the process, which I'm going to do here on what it takes to buy a home in Maine. And we talk about my fees and all that stuff and how we go about it. And some of those things are like, after we get through the goals and budget and timeline, we talk about fees, process, and responsibilities. Like, so one of the things that I do is we talk about process a lot, right? So I can set you up on a kind of personal search program. It's not an MLS search program, but it's a graphic program that really shows you in color different properties and what they're going for, and a little, interesting statistics and stats and all that stuff, and kind of the housing and the schooling around that. And you can use that program. A lot of people do use my program. They also use Zillow. They also use Realtor. They also use Redfin. They also use whatever, right? They find houses. What I like about my program the most is when you get on it, when I get you to subscribe on it, it's free to you, obviously, but when I get you to log in and subscribe to it, everything that you like, I can see immediately, right? So what happens is typically, right, you find, let's say you have a budget. Let's say you just have a budget of $500,000, and I'm just going to make it simple. You want to live in somewhere in southern Maine, so you're searching. You kind of have a graphical search area, and you find a bunch of houses. You start looking through them from the pictures and stuff, and you like it. What I see, if you love what you've seen, I get that immediate notification. What I can do that you can't do because you're not licensed is you can't see all the stuff behind the scenes. You can't see the property disclosures. You can't see the deeds. You can't see if there's been any water or sewer inspections. You can't see if there's any right-of-ways. You can't see any of that stuff because that's all behind the scenes that realtors must put up when they're trying to sell a house. So, and only other realtors or people that are licensed real estate agents can see that information. So what I do is I go start looking at those properties. Before we even go to look at a property, I start looking at those properties, and I give you it's kind of like a chart, right? And it tells you based upon your goals and what you're trying to achieve, where they align to your goals, right? So pictures only tell a part of the story, right? They don't tell the whole story. Sure. And today it used to be that like pictures didn't do houses justice. Like the house was a lot better than a picture. Now it's just the opposite. Pictures make a house look like sometimes it's way nicer than the house is. So obviously seeing it in person is important. But beyond that, understanding behind the scenes, like, age of stuff, when stuff was replaced, some of the challenges, that all is supposed to be disclosed in a property disclosure that you can't see unless you have access to that information. And the only real way to get access to that information is to partner with a realtor or a real estate agent. The difference is a realtor is part of the National Association of Realtors and a real estate agent is not. But you got to partner with one of those so you can get that information. Once we narrow down some of the houses that you like, or even a house that you like, and we go through that paperwork and we talk about it, obviously you can't see the house. You're not here, right? Unless you're going to fly here every time you like a house, assuming we can't, we don't buy the first house. It'd be great if we do, but so this is where we come involved, right? So I take the kind of camera you're still looking in right now that I'm shooting this video with. I take cameras and I set up a showing for myself and with the listing agent, and I go into that house and it's like I'm seeing it, you're seeing it for the first time through my eyes, and I video record everything in that house. So yeah, you're going to see the pictures that are online, but you're not going to see what maybe some of the challenges, right? A lot of realtors aren't going to showcase some of the challenges online, right? They have to mention the property disclosures, but they're not going to showcase them. So having flipped properties, own multiple houses, own some business, some commercial real estate myself now, and been doing this for quite a quite a long time working in the real estate industry, not just as a broker, but as a flipper, as a developer, as an investor. I have a pretty good understanding of what to look for. So when I go into that house with video, I'm taking video of a lot of stuff. I'm taking video from just driving into the neighborhood. I'm recording it live on a Google map. So when I send that to you, you can see how I got there. You can see the neighborhood. You can see not only inside the house, but outside the house, the property. You're going to see things that you're not going to be able to see online. And I'm going to narrate some of that stuff while I'm showing it because I'm looking at it for the first time. So it's as raw to me as it will be to you. I take that video and I upload it into a Google Drive, and I give you access to that Google Drive. So you see the same thing I'm seeing if you're not available to see it real time. Real time sometimes is hard because sometimes it goes in and out. So I like to do it recorded. That way you can always refer back to. You can slow down, you can speed up. You guys can look at it together that night. If you're a family or if you're doing this yourself, you can take your time looking at it. You can go back and forth. You can zoom in on stuff. I like doing it that way, right? So we go through that process. Let's say you like it and you want to make an offer. Well, then we go to step 2, right? And we could do this once. We could do this multiple times, right? It all depends. Once we narrow down that list of does this house meet your criteria from function to budget to location to school system to where you want to be. Once that meets your criteria, and then you like what I'm showing you online through video, recorded video, we can make an offer. And that offer is always going to be contingent upon 2 things, guys. I don't know if I'll make an offer for you without it, unless you're just 100% adamant you don't want it. Number 1 is a home inspection. And number 2 is obviously if you're going to finance, it has to appraise, right? So let's say we make an offer. Pretty good at making offers. I generally win 90 to 95% of the offers that I put out for my clients. That being said, you got to understand when you're making an offer, right? It can't be all one-sided. Can't be all on the buy side. But I understand it can't all be on the sell side. The good news is I also list houses. So I kind of know on both sides of the equation, I'm like a double agent, if you will. I know what sellers are looking for because I also list houses. And I've also sat in those living rooms and those kitchen tables with sellers and trying to understand their needs. And every seller is not the same, but understanding their needs and what they're looking for, right? So I kind of get their feeling of what they're looking for. And I also know a lot of the agents. I know a lot of the realtors in the state of Maine, so I can pick up the phone and have a kind of a personal conversation with them, trying to get out of them what their seller's really looking for. That is one of the reasons why I have a pretty good track record on making offers and getting them accepted. So we make an offer, we get it accepted. We got to understand what you're going to do about earnest money, right? How much you want to put down. Typically what happens in that process is you're going to send me a check for the earnest money. Not me personally. It's going to be made out to eXp Realty, where I'm going to deposit that into a trust account. It's going to sit there in escrow. But we're going to want an inspection. Now, if you're going to fly here or come here, there's only going to be 2, you don't have to come for either of it. But if you want to come, the 2 most important times to come is during an inspection and then obviously during the walkthrough and closing. But let's talk about an inspection. If you can't be here for an inspection, not a problem. I go to every inspection. Obviously, I help you select an inspector. I'm going to give you a bunch of home inspections. Again, I have my own preference, my own personal experience of inspectors that I like. There's a lot of good ones, guys, but I give you my own. You hire them. I set you all up. It's all online. I get the inspecting on, and I open up the house or whatever the property is that you're buying, and I let that inspector in. And depending on the size of the house, it can be 4, 5, 6 hour inspection, but I'm there every minute while they're there. And whether you're there or not, because having these relationships with these inspectors, there's conversations that we can have, right? That they're going to find stuff, and they're going to document it into an inspection report for you generally that night. They try to get to it that night when they're doing the inspection. But it's also going to give me inside knowledge of the workings of the house as well, right? What they're seeing. And I can talk to you about some of that stuff, right? The inspection process and what we find and the kind of personal conversations and what the inspector was thinking on this one or that one or this thing or that thing, right? And not only that, but I'm obviously going to see things that you're not going to be able to see even when I first go in there and video record, because I do this quite a bit, so I kind of know what to look for, right? So we're going to find a house, do an inspection. I'm going to be able to interpret the inspection report, answer any questions you have. And that's going to be important in case we're going to ask for the seller to make some contingency allowances, whether they're going to give you a credit, whether they're going to fix a thing or not. Now, sellers don't have to do anything, guys, just to be clear. And obviously, if there's an inspection that you don't like, that's an out. You can walk away from the deal and you're not gonna lose your earnest money. You are going to lose the money you paid for the inspection because it was a professional service that you paid for, but you're not going to lose your earnest money. Inspections go for $700 to $2,000. It all depends on the size of the house and what you want done, right? If it's a well in leach field, I'm going to recommend a water test. I'm going to recommend a leach field test. If it has a basement, I'm probably going to recommend a radon test if it doesn't have radon mitigation already, right? But those are some of the things that I'm going to recommend you pay for in order to make sure we get a clear understanding of the inner workings of the house structurally, and then the inner workings of the systems, the roof and all that, the furnace, the water, the well, and then make sure there's no issues with the leach field or sewer if you're not on public water or sewer through the municipality, wherever you're moving. So we go through the inspection, we write an ICA, this is an investigation contingency amendment if there's things that we want to kind of have the seller fixed or if we want the price to be adjusted. And that's all a negotiation too. Again, sellers don't have to do anything. So it's going to depend on how much competition there is, but or how good your offer is. But generally, in most cases, if we don't ask for anything that's just totally unreasonable, the sellers are going to try to make it right? If you ask for every little nitpicky thing, most sellers are going to just say, no, I'm going to put it back on the market. But the seller is tying that house up or that property up while you're going through this process. So inspections, guys, just to give you a little heads up here, generally has to be completed within 5 to 7 business days from the date the offer is accepted. So we got to move pretty fast in that process, right? So within 5 to 7 days, I have an inspector in the house looking at the property, looking at some of the defects, are they material defects, are they structural defects, some of that stuff, just to give you an understanding of what you're buying. And this isn't case you haven't been here yet, right? If you're with the inspector, then you're going to see it too if you happen to come into town while the inspections happen. But that's going to happen within 5 to 7 business days, and then they'll give you that report, and I'll be able to interpret that report with you as we go through that process. So let's just assume, for the purpose of this exercise, you've gone through the inspection and everything's good, right? You like the inspection, or maybe a couple items that you have to redo, you're going to ask the seller to redo. But for the most part, the inspection is good. And the next thing is, I just did this with a buyer from Pennsylvania. They wanted they were going to pay to have some of the things changed in the house before they moved in, right? So after they closed, they were going to have some work done on the house before they moved in, so they didn't have to move in while the work was being done. They were putting in a new floor. They were going to do a new roof. They're putting up some fencing. I will go to the site and meet with the contractors there because they're going to want to go and see the property. I'll open it up. I'll work with the listing broker to make sure we can get in. So the contractors come in and give their estimates and their pricing to you if you want improvements on the property, if you haven't seen it already. I'll do that process as well, right? So I'm going to put a caveat here. As long as the property is like a couple hours away. So most people in the state of Maine live from my place within a couple hours, right? I live in the kind of center of, not the center of Maine, but a lot of people live in southern Maine. I think 42% of the population lives in southern Maine, and then another 81% of the population, let's put it this way, 81% of the population, this is another video that I did, live within 2 hours from where I live, with the majority, 41% or 42% of it living right in like within 30 minutes from where I live, but within 2 hours, right? If you're going to buy a property and it's way up north, right? Way up, we call it the county, or way up past Bangor, then I am going to outsource that to some of my team members up there, and I'm going to have them. I'll be there for the inspection, but I'll have them do all the kind of meeting with contractors and stuff, because it just doesn't make sense for me to drive 3, 4, 5 hours to meet with a contractor for 20 minutes and drive back. So I'll work with some of my team members. I'll pay them. It's no cost to you. I get that. It comes back to me in a commission that we have agreed to at the end, or that I get paid at closing. We get through the inspection. We go through if there's an ICA, we get through some of the construction stuff. You get quotes. Now we're going to get to, let me scroll up here. Now we're going to get to working with a title company, right? So in Maine, we're a lawyer state, an attorney state. So everything has to go through an attorney. So I select for you, or I give you options on title companies you and the lender will work with. Typically the way this works is I get in touch with the lender. I say, this is the title company one you want to use. There's some title companies that I like a lot. There's some title companies that I don't like a lot. And there's numerous reasons. The ones that I like a lot are really good. They do it all the time. They have a lot of due diligence. Title companies, attorneys, they're going to do the deed. They're going to investigate, make sure there's no encumbrances, make sure there's nobody can make a claim against the deed. They're going to make sure that the seller doesn't have liens against them or haven't paid things, or going to make sure that whatever it is, it's going to be paid at closing, right? So I work with a title company. Again, I have a lot of relationships with a lot of different title companies here, or attorneys. I work with them with you. You can be on the phone too. You don't have to be, but essentially I am working for you. I'm an extension of you. And I work with that title company, close and make sure everything's staying online. There's I read a statistic and I never counted it, but there's 23 people from the time the offer is accepted that touch your potential property, either from paperwork or physically, right? You got inspectors, you got title companies, you got city, if it's a city, municipality, you got sewer, water, you got power, there's just 23 or 27 people, title, underwriting, lenders, that I have to manage it all, right? When I say I, as a realtor, and other realtors who are good at what they do, they manage all that too, right? That is why I don't take on, I can't physically work with, I just can't work with more than 20 to 30 buyers or even client sellers in a year. And I don't want to, right? I just don't. I'd be doing you a disjustice. So I made a pledge on this channel that anybody that comes to me through this YouTube channel, I will work with directly. Unless you're way far away, then I'll work with you directly and partner with one of my team members across the state and work with them. But I will still be your focal point and the person that you're working with directly. So we get through the title company. We make sure that closes. We make sure all that happens. Now, before closing, the other key time that you're going to want to be here, if you're going to come, is during the walkthrough, right? So it hasn't happened that much. It just actually did happen to me a couple weeks ago, unfortunately, where when we left the house after the inspection to when we came back to the house was not in the same shape that it was left. When I say not in the same shape, they had taken some things away. They had left it's supposed to be broom swept clean. It was not broom swept clean. And because the house was so far away, I didn't actually do the walkthrough. I should have. But my buyer was like, no, it's cool. You don't have to. I get it. It's 4 hours away. No problem. I'm fine with it either way. And against my spidey sense, so I'm kind of calling myself out on this point, I let it go. And I shouldn't have. I should have at least paid one of my team members up there a couple $100 to go through. The problem is, as a realtor, you're not supposed to do the walkthrough because you can't sign off on what you find. You personally can't. The person signing the loan needs to sign off on it, right? So they don't even want you to really record it because you're kind of opening yourself up to liability. So, But beyond that, I will do that. I will record what I see. If you can't be here, I will record what I see in the walkthrough. It'll be real time, and generally a walkthrough happens a couple hours before closing. So if you can't be here at closing, there's a walkthrough, and then there's mail away closings, right? If you can't be here. So I can set up with title companies, video or mail away. You can do everything remotely. You don't even have to be here for the closing, obviously, and to get the keys. I arrange all that. You don't have to be here for that either, right? Although at this point, you're generally pretty excited and you're going to at least make a trip to at least one, if not two, to see the house and what you're buying, especially at closing or sometime in that process between when you go under contract to when we close. Generally, in my experience of the multiple families that I've helped do this, they at least come up once or twice during that process. But essentially, I am your eyes, ears, feet on the ground, hands, whatever you want to call it, to help you make that purchase of that property. Once you close, obviously, we have a pretty cool tool called Utility Connect that's free for you to use, and they set you up with transferring everything into your name. I get the information from the prior seller with account numbers of power, sewer, water, if you're in a municipal system, whatever the utilities are that you have. If Utility Connect can't do that, they will at least give you who to contact so you can do that. We just, again, happened just a couple of weeks ago, helped this couple from Utah buy this house, and the day before the closing, found out when he went to call the power company to have the power switched into his name, found out that because where the house was located, the sellers, the homeowners in that neighborhood paid a power company to bring power to them because it was a little remote, it was by a lake, that they had a monthly payment that had to be paid every month until it was paid off for that power. And when they went to sell the house, there was still a balance of like $1,081. So the buyer couldn't transfer the power into their own name until that $1,081 was paid off. So caught it, made sure the title company was aware of it. The title company included it in the closing document, the settlement statement. Came out at closing. The check was sent to the power company to make sure that they were whole, so the buyer could transfer the money into their name. Now, the seller had to agree. This is another document that had to be taken care of. The seller had to agree to keep the power on in their name until that check cleared and the power company was whole, therefore allowing the buyer now to put the power into their name. Guys, that's the first time it's ever happened to me in, 2013, 11 years since I've been licensed as a realtor doing this. But just saying some of the things that come up. So those are some of the stuff we go through, right? The day in the life of a realtor, especially when you got a house under contract and you're representing a buyer from out of state. Obviously, there's keys. How do you get your keys if you're not here? Obviously, there's probably timelines where if you're going to have a closing and you're not going to be here, I get the keys and I can either mail you the keys or meet you when you get here with the keys or leave the keys at the property in a lockbox that only you and I know the code to. So when you get there, the keys are all set. So you can get into the house. I actually stay around. Like I had a buyer a couple transactions ago. They came up, they looked at the house, and went back, and they were concerned about their heat, right? So they called me up and said, "Hey, can you go check the house, make sure it's not too cold in there?" It was a couple months ago, and they weren't here, so they just want to make sure nothing was freezing and stuff. And of course, I'll do that. Again, within a couple hours, I'll go there, I'll let myself in, make sure the heat's good, and everything. I kind of like overseer of your house until you get here, till it's officially handed off to you if you're not here at closing. So, and then there's a 30-day post move. So once you're here, you'll probably get, and generally through this process, we build relationships, right? So I've never had somebody move here that I haven't become friends with, right? Doesn't matter if they're way up north or just local down the street, right? Somehow we've made a connection through the whole process over the course of 2 to 3 months, and we've become pretty good friends. We're communicating on a daily basis, or at least a few times a week. If there's nothing going on, just make sure everybody's on the same page. We've become friends, so I maintain those relationships. You'll start getting like recipe magazines and stuff like that from me eventually, but just to make sure that I'm still alive and exist. But generally 30 days post move, I send you a text or an email saying, "Hey, here's the things to do in the area." Right? I know it's almost like you just had to decompress, and you're finally here, and you got a home, and maybe you already have a job, maybe you got relocated, or maybe you're in the process of finding a job as you move here. You get some time, so you make that move, you buy the house, and then you get a job. Anything along those lines, whatever happens. A lot of people, what I've found is a lot of people work remote now, so they can move anywhere, right? And they get here, and they might find another job while they're here, but wouldn't recommend you do it during the buying the house process, right? You got to do it before or after, because it's going to affect closing. But 30 days post-move, I'm going to send you a text or an email or even a call and say, here's some of the things, here's some of the sites, here's some of the restaurants, here's some of the things you might want to try out. Obviously, if you have kids in school, before we even buy that house, I'm going to talk to you about the school system, the good, the bad, the ugly. Maine schools are ranked higher than the national average in terms of academia. We have a pretty good school system. Taxes, 50% of the property tax goes to the school system generally, if not more. The other 50% generally goes to the municipality, if not less. But we have a pretty good school system, K through 12, unless you're homeschooling. We have some charter schools here. We have some private schools here as well. So another big reason why people are looking to move to Maine, especially if they have a young family just starting out, right? The ratios of school teachers to schools, I think the highest I've seen is 13 to 1, right? We don't have these massive classrooms with 50 to 60 to 1. You just can't do it, right? I think the best ratios that I've seen, the highest ratios that I've seen, is 13 to 14 to 1. Now, I haven't seen every ratio across the state, so some of them may be a little high, especially if you're in Portland, especially if you're going to move to Portland. But most of the ratios I've seen is under 15 to 1 teacher to pupil ratio. So, excuse me, guys, there's a lot more to talk about. This is just a kind of oversee, just to kind of give you kind of an idea, if you will, on what it takes to move here, the process that we go through. There's a lot more documentation. There's a lot more to do. I can't give away all my trade secrets on this video because it's open to the public. So I'm sure there'll be other realtors taking this, and, I'm creating my own competition. But anyways, guys, I hope this was helpful. Again, if you want more information, my contact information is in the comments below. If you're watching this on a TV and you can't see the comments below, then I'm going to throw up right now my contact information on the screen so you have it. But again, guys, this channel is all about just helping you make an informed and keeping you educated and up to date on what it's like, to live in Maine, the process of moving to Maine. Look at some of my other videos. I've talked about school districts. I've talked about where a lot of people live. There's one, I don't know, I did a few months ago. I broke down the entire purchase and sale agreement, chapter and verse, every section. It's a long one. It's probably long. If you look for one that's like 2 hours long, that's the one. It breaks down the purchase and sale agreement info. I talked about investigation, contingency, amendments. I've talked about a lot of stuff. It's more than just, I see a lot of YouTube videos of people going out there and showing neighborhoods and showing houses, and that's cool. And I think it's important so you understand kind of what you're getting into. You can see a lot of that stuff online as well. So I don't spend as much time doing that, neighborhood tours and stuff. What I do spend time on is once you kind of understand a realm of where you want to live, then we hone in on what is in that area and what's available. Maine is it's the largest state in New England. It's almost as big as the other 5 New England states combined, just a little bit smaller. If you were to take out, I think, Cape Cod, it would be bigger. And it's a pretty rural state, so most people live, as I said, 81% of the population live within 2 hours from me, and like 41% of the population lives within 30 minutes of me. So, but when you get past that, I was just up in the Allagash last week fishing, and it's God's country. There's nothing up there. It's beautiful country. But a lot of people don't live there. The Allagash is in northwestern Maine, in case you're not familiar with Maine. But really, you get up, look at a video that I did, I think it was my last video, 2 videos ago. You'll see where hardly anybody lives if you want to get an idea of kind of the population where people live in Maine. So, guys, if this was helpful, then drop me a line, send me some comments. If you have questions, if you want any more information about a specific territory or municipality or area within Maine, then drop me a line, send me a text, give me a call. I'll give you some information on that area as well. I'm pretty versed in most of the state of Maine. I don't know every nook and cranny, but if I don't know and I know somebody who does, or I can find out, I'm pretty well networked throughout the state. So, guys, it's what's the date? It's Wednesday. Memorial Day was on Monday. I hope to have this up and out by the end of the week. Because I got another market update coming. Main numbers are going to be in here at the end of the week, so they'll come out next week. If you have any questions, reach out to me. I hope this was helpful, guys. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Scott Thibeau, over and out. Bye-bye.